Hi, my name is Emily and this is my channel Books for Life. Thank you so much for joining me. So today I want to talk to you all about the audiobooks that I listened to during the months of November and December. And there were, I'm getting old and I have to refer back to my sheet, I listened to 8 audiobooks during November and December. So I think that's decently good for 2 months. I'm just going to go in the order that I listened to them, not in the way that I rated them. The first one I listened to was Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine, and I devoured this book. I took this out from the library and I started listening to it when I only had like 3 days left in my loan for it, and on the last night, I got into it and I had like 6 hours left and I did not want to return it because I knew that there was a waiting list and I wasn't willing to wait. I wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to know more of the story. I was really invested in it. So I found things to do around the house to keep me occupied so that I could keep listening to it. So I cleaned my closet out. I did lots of dishes. I folded lots of laundry. I mopped. I just did whatever I could so I could keep my headphones in and listen to it. And I loved it. This was definitely a 5 out of 5 read for me. So this is about a woman whose life is fine. Her name is Eleanor Oliphant and she works in an office and everything is fine. She does the same thing every day. She does the same thing like every weekend. She has the same routine, and then one day she meets this guy from the IT department. I cannot remember his name, but they end up leaving work together and they find this older gentleman who has fallen down in the street and they end up helping him, and this kind of like just sets her off on a different path. She isn't following the same routine. She ends up like going to visit him in the hospital. She ends up going to a few like social gatherings that she's not used to attending, and so her life kind of changes, and you follow her story, and it was beautifully written. Her life, you learn, is really not fine, and I don't know, it makes you wonder like what does it mean to really live, and it makes you value, you know, the friendships that you have in your life and the other relationships you have in your life with your family, and you know, makes you look at what is really important. And I loved the story. I was completely invested. This was definitely a 5 out of 5. The next book that I listened to was a book that I've had on my classroom library shelves, but I've never gotten around to actually reading it, and this was Doll Bones by Holly Black. And this was a really cute middle grade novel. It is about these 3 friends, 2 girls and a guy, and I cannot remember their names, but they have this China doll in the one girl's house, and they kind of like use it when they play like dolls together, and it's always been like the queen. And so they take this doll out of the china closet, which they were told to never do, and a ghost girl like appears and tells them that they need to go bring her to her grave site. So she's made from bone china, which is made from actual pieces of bone, and inside the doll would be her ashes. And so she wants to go back to her resting place. She was never properly buried, and so she tells these 3 kids that it is their job to make sure that she gets there. And so they hop on a bus and they do their best to bring her, and it is their adventure. So it asks the question, like, when do you stop believing in make-believe? When do you stop playing with dolls and instead you grow up and you mature? And how important are friendships to you? And what is really important in life? The one kid has conflict with his parents and, you know, what's going on there. And they all have very different home lives. And it's just a great middle grade read. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought the narration was really good. But I really enjoyed this audiobook. It was definitely a cute middle grade read. I have it in my classroom library as a physical copy so kids can take it out if they want to, and I just happened to listen to this one audio instead. So then I started listening to Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty, and I got about 35-40 minutes into this and then I DNF'd it. I just could not stand the narrator. I don't know, it was just something about her voice that I didn't like, and I know that I will love the story because I have read other Liane Moriarty stories and really enjoyed them, and so I think I just have to actually get a copy of it and read it. This narration was just not for me. So I'm not going to give this one a rating yet. I am hoping that at some point this year I will pick up a physical copy of it and give it another try, but I did not enjoy that audio. So the next book that I listened to was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate, and this novel was beautiful. It was heart-wrenching. It was compelling. It was just written so profoundly. I loved this story. I loved the characters. And so this story takes place during two time periods. The first is in the 1940s, and then you switch it to present day. And so in the 1940s, you follow Rill Foss and her four siblings, and they live aboard a shanty boat in the Mississippi River, and life is perfect. Her mother is due to have a baby, and so they're all excited, and so the opening chapter is her mother giving birth, and the delivery is not going well, and so her father must take her mother to the hospital, and so he leaves 12-year-old Rill Foss in charge. So the next morning, a group of men come, and they claim that they are the police and that they need to go take away. And so Rill thinks that they're taking them to the hospital, and they're not really given much information, but it turns out they are being taken to the Tennessee Children's Home Society. And it's an adoption agency. Rill goes with her four siblings, and they are told that they will be returned back to their family soon, but that actually is not the case. And they are thrown into an adoption agency, and life there is horrible. The kids are treated poorly. The place is dirty, and they're given little to no food, and it's just a really horrible place to be. This place is run by a woman named Georgia Tann, and she is a real person. So this is a historical fiction novel. And Georgia Tann, what she did is she basically stole children from poor families and then sold them to rich families for adoption. And this went on for years. People did not realize exactly. Well, there had to be people who realized what she was doing because she had help. But, she was not found guilty for her crimes until basically Georgia Tann was on her deathbed. And this is her true story. And so, I don't know how this went on for so long the way that it did, but it did. And this story is just beautifully written, and I didn't know anything about it, and I was able to learn so much. I did some research after because I was curious, and thousands of children were taken, and many of them were never ever reunited with their families, and many of them were never even adopted. The conditions were so bad in the orphanages that many of the kids died. And what they would do is they would shred the paperwork, and then they would go dump them in the swamp. And it's just horrible. And a lot of these kids came from loving parents who did everything they could to get them back and then couldn't. So then you switch to current day, and you are following a senator and his daughter, and the main character is the daughter, and they are going to a nursing home they're celebrating, I think it's a couple's wedding anniversary or someone's birthday or something like that. And so they're going to a nursing home, and in the nursing home she ends up meeting a woman who kind of looks familiar, and she's not sure how. And then she goes to the woman's room and sees a picture of what looks like a younger version of her grandmother. And so this kind of sparks interest in her, and she ends up digging a little bit into this woman's past and who she is, and is there a connection to her grandmother. And so you jump back and forth between these two stories, and it is beautifully written. It is a wonderful novel. I absolutely loved it. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Check it out. It was amazing. The narrator was wonderful. The next book that I listened to was a novella, and it was The Deal of a Lifetime by Frederick Bachman, and this was just a 45-minute long story. It was about a man who has cancer and is writing a letter to his son on Christmas Eve. So Frederick Bachman has an amazing way of starting his stories, I've learned, because I've started listening to Beartown as well, but this is the opening line of The Deal of a Lifetime. Hi, it's your dad. You'll be waking up soon. It's Christmas Eve morning in Helsingborg, and I've killed a person. That's not how fairy tales usually begin, I know, but I took a life. Does it make a difference if you know whose it was? So immediately, this Christmas story, I was intrigued. Who wants to wake up Christmas morning reading a letter about your father killing somebody? What? It seems like the complete opposite of what you would expect Christmas morning to be. So I was immediately intrigued, and I really enjoyed this story. I know there's some negative comments about it on Goodreads, and I think that's only because people thought when they purchased it that it was going to be a full-length novel, only to find out that it was only a novella. So a lot of people were really upset that they had went out of their way and purchased this $20 book. to find out that it wasn't actually a book, just like a short story. So I wouldn't spend $20 on it, but to listen to it for free on Libby was perfect for me. So it was a really great Christmas story. It kind of talks about, you know, the true meaning of Christmas and what really is important in your life and what you should value. And, you know, especially for 45 minutes, definitely check it out for next year. I really enjoyed it, so I'm giving this one a 4 out of 5. My only complaint is that I kind of wish it was longer. I wish he had written this as, you know, a full-length novel. There was so much more he could have done with it, but it was beautifully written. I was captivated, and I absolutely loved it. A way of opening his novels. So I started listening to Beartown by him during the month of December, and this is the opening line. Late one evening, toward the end of March, a teenager picked up a double-barreled shotgun, walked into the forest, put the gun to someone else's forehead, and pulled the trigger. That's the first line. And you cannot tell me that that does not pull you in. I immediately wanted to know more. I really loved this. Unfortunately, it was returned to the library before I had a chance to finish it. So I have a hold on it so that hopefully I will get it back soon and continue to listen to it. So right now I think about halfway through it, and I'm giving it 5 out of 5. I want to keep listening to it, so I'll talk more about that hopefully at the end of this month. I will get it back so I can finish it, but fantastic. It is about a little hockey town, and the community is dying, and all of their hopes are placed on this one hockey team and that they will win this championship game and kind of like bring life back to the community. Because if they can win this championship game, then hopefully this special like hockey school will open up there and more people will come back in. And so there is a lot on these kids' shoulders to win a hockey game, and the entire community is focused on them. So I am excited to find out how it ends. So one of the books that I wanted to read before the end of the year, and I talked about this in the box books that I wanted to read before the end of the year, was The Lies We Told by Camellia Way. And so I ended up listening to this one on audio, and oh my gosh, it was so good. I was like yelling at the stereo at one point, like, don't believe so-and-so, like, don't listen to that person, you stop, and because I just got so into it. The narration was awesome. There were 2 narrators because you're following 2 different like families. You're following a main character, and I can't think of her name, and her boyfriend goes missing, and she's doing everything she can to try to find out where he's gone. She has gone to the police, and her apartment ends up getting broken into, and all these other weird things end up happening. And then you go back and you are following a mom who is trying to raise her 2 children, and her one daughter is a very difficult child. And actually the book opens up where she like looks across her pillow and she sees a decapitated head, and her daughter had gone and killed their pet bird and left the body on the floor of the kitchen and put the head on the pillow next to her mother. So like that's the opening, and you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on in this child's head? And so you're following this mom and her struggle to raise her daughter, and then you're also following this like mid-20-year-old woman whose boyfriend has gone missing. And it's a phenomenal story. There were a few plot twists that I did not see coming. I really enjoyed it, and I'm giving this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And lastly, I started Outlander, and I am right now 20 hours into it out of 32. So I'm going to be finishing the last 12 hours, the month of January. So I will talk about that a little bit more during January, but I did start this on like December 29th. So I'm really listening to it I'm listening to the majority of it during the month of January, but I did start it during the month of December. So that is what I listened to during the months of November and December. Let me know what audiobooks you are currently listening to. Do you have any on your wish list that I have listened to? Have you read or listened to any of these books? I'd love to talk to you about them. So leave a comment below. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And I'll be back with more bookish videos soon. Keep reading!